right.
Are we going to start the podcast?
Well, I have no idea how long to give this thing. This is our first YouTube live video.
Yeah.
And so I guess we'll just go for it. I recorded an episode earlier with Royce, who helped film it.
That's I.
About the 5 most common mistakes by archery hunters, preferably bow hunters, because target shooters usually have it figured out.
Yeah.
And we decided to do a podcast on it as well for the podcast crew.
Yep.
And we got our first listener.
Oh, sweet.
Hi. So, and I didn't know if anybody would be on here. So
I don't know how the live stuff works. We have 2 people now.
Yeah, we're doing 2,000 times better than what I thought we'd do now. So
yeah.
But we do have a few subscribers. So people are probably getting notifications and now they're logging on here and stuff. But so what this is, hey, what's up, man? Hey, it's Jimmy.
I think it just notifies your followers.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna do the same on Instagram. So we could answer questions. Perhaps we could do it that way.
We could do a double. You could do Instagram. I could do the YouTube live.
We could answer questions of people's comments, shooting mistakes, and their questions on what they're doing.
That's
wrong.
a great idea.
Not that I'm not an archery guru.
Well,
I shoot sometimes.
Well, I'm just gonna use this here Aki bow to.
Ooh.
That
thing's loud.
Product placement. I'm no way sponsored or affiliated with Aki bow, but. So we're gonna get the Instagram up here running real quick. Thanks for tuning in real quick. You and I think we should just start going for it then.
Yeah. So what we're gonna cover, like Garrett said, common shooting mistakes.
I didn't see that comment there.
I think it said, "Hey fellas."
Oh, is that what it was? No, there's another one. How do I check comments? Oh, new to archery, have learned so much from your videos so far. Thanks. Hey, thanks, man. I'm really happy that you're getting stuff out of it.
Hey, Sean.
And I've been avoiding this topic for a while, but because it's a great way to get shredded online. There's so many different opinions out there. There's so many different. I mean,
go on Archery Talk and look how to get flamed.
Yeah, yeah. There's a reason I quit going on there, and it's because I posted about archery minutes of angle. I said MOA because I'm like I'm on an archery forum. I don't need to say AMOA.
Right.
And I got torn up. Bows aren't rifles. What are you talking about MOA? I'm like, clearly everybody on here is an expert and doesn't know their ass from a tea kettle. So
right.
I haven't been on there since, but my videos get posted on there, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, they
do.
Telling me that I saw one of your videos on there.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, we're just covering. I think we're each gonna pick maybe like 5 of our.
Yeah.
I'm sure a lot of them will overlap.
Yeah, and if you guys need to go, don't worry. You're not gonna hurt my feelings by leaving early. This will be up on YouTube. It'll be on the podcast. I think Royce is gonna co-upload it.
Yep.
Yeah. So.
Yep. We got a couple of co-uploads going.
Yeah.
Here.
So this is going to be common mistakes made by bow hunters for shooting process, shooting tips, and stuff like that.
I would go bow hunters.
Bow hunters.
Rather than target.
I'm not going to give target shooters any tips.
Okay.
So things that I see in the first, I'm just going to kind of regurgitate what we did in the video because it's still valid.
Can you let me kick it off?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm going to kick it off. Improper draw length.
Very common.
That's my first one because I too I always float around draw lengths. Like I'll go from 28.5 to 29 down to 28, a longer D loop, shorter D loop, put a twist in a cable or a twist in a string, excuse me. Constantly messing with draw length, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. You're the archery guy. I just shoot stuff with a bow sometimes, but if you are anchored in the incorrect position,
yes, you
can cause what you talked about earlier.
Yeah.
Facial pressure, improper anchor points, improper releasing, all this stuff can, and I mean bad form. You know, all that can be caused from an improper drawing.
Right.
So that's my number one, I think, is improper bow setup as a whole, but more than anything, I think improper drawing.
That's very common, and I see it all the time, and I don't know why, and I have an idea why, but usually it's too long of a draw length, more than it is too short. And I think what guys are doing is that they're chasing speed, and with these new bows nowadays, I chase speed too, but I buy the bow, and I buy a turbo.
Sure.
That gains me 5 to 10 feet per second over what I would be shooting, but I'm shooting the correct draw length. I'm not buying a fairly fast bow and then going too long. And
or going too light.
Or going too light. And what guys are doing, what some guys have done in the past, they've used overdraw bows to get that speed up. You'll see some guys anchor way back here. Cameron Haynes, that's how he shoots. He shoots with his thumb back here. Is he shooting wrong? No, I'm not going to say he's shooting wrong. He's shooting in his lane.
The guy hardly ever misses anything.
No, he's a great shot, and I've shot next to him. I've seen him shoot. He's legit, and that he's running in his own lane. And where you're going with that, what reminded me of somebody is that Vegas shoot, and he recently just actually had it stripped from him, but he was shooting a Martin bow, and his draw length and everything, it looked bad, looked way too long and stuff like that, if I remember right. But he was still able to be consistent, and he was still able to duplicate his shot process. Now, when we get into this episode, you're going to hear me talk about consistency, and you're going to hear me talk about duplication over and over and over and over again, because principles don't change.
Right. Well,
fads do.
Archery is a simple principle.
Right.
Right. Draw the bow.
Put
the pin where it's supposed to go, and
release.
Release the arrow.
Yeah.
And the arrow goes where the pin goes.
Yeah.
Assuming that your bow's set up. Not even set up right. Your bow could be completely out of tune, set up incorrectly, wrong draw length.
Right.
If you consistently anchor to the same exact spot and consistently release the same exact way,
right,
wherever that pin is that you have sighted in, the arrow's going to go there. The tail of the arrow might point one way or the other if you're real out of tune, but the point of the arrow is going to hit where the pin is.
Well, somebody said that pro shops aren't doing anybody any favors, something like that. And, I find that, talking to guys like Jimmy over East, is that they use mechanicals almost as a crutch or a shortcut versus getting a good tune.
Yeah.
And for reasons like that, they're just getting people out way quicker. You got to think about the bow hunting capitals of USA, pretty much Pennsylvania. I mean, that's where, when they're designing bows, Matthews is designing bows, and I don't really think they're thinking of the guys over here. They're thinking of a guy in a tree stand over in Pennsylvania, and that's why you're getting a 4.8 pound bow.
Right.
So.
But I shoot a heavy bow better.
You do? Well, I would rather have a light bow and put the weight where I want than start with a freaking heavy bow. I shot that Halon, and then, I carried it around in the wilderness for a year. My buddy had to chill.
Yeah.
And I had to carry his bow for a second, and I was like, what am I doing?
Same thing happened.
It was like over a pound difference. And then, but it doesn't sound like a lot, but when you're doing 6, 8, 10 miles in crappy country, a lighter bow really does help. And I know we're in a rabbit hole here, but
we are. That's the podcast game.
But it is. And if you guys have any questions, be sure to put them up on the screen.
Yeah,
we'd be happy to answer them for you. But so draw length, totally agree. It's very important to have that. Is it an end all be all? No, you can have a short draw length, and if I'm going to be off on my draw length, I'd rather be short than long.
Yep.
It's easier to draw. It's easier to anchor. I feel like you can be more consistent and duplicatable with your shot process. You're not going to struggle to find your anchor as much because you can still anchor off your jaw line rather than finding a spot back off your ear. But in a perfect world, shoot the correct draw length. And for different bows, guys, draw lengths may be different. So for Hoyt, a 28 is a 28. For Matthews, 28 could mean 28 and a half.
Yeah.
28 and a little bit of change. I mean,
sure.
So I shoot a 28 in a Hoyt and then a 27 and a half in a Matthews.
Yeah, and I shoot a 28 and a half in a Hoyt, and I'm a 29 on my Elite.
Are you?
Yeah.
Wow.
I think it's because of the limb stops compared to the cable stops.
Very possible.
Because the Hoyts give you a little extra, I think, on the sponge.
There's a little bit of sponge on them, and even when I went back and shot my Halon, when I first bought my Halon, I'm like, man, this thing has such a solid back wall. But going back and shooting it, there's sponge there.
There's sponge.
As the bows get better, you can pick apart the bows that were amazing 3 years ago,
sure.
And it's just really cool to watch. But so my first one would probably be the most common thing. I was wanting to say this later, but it's going to come out now because it's my number one is a crappy shot process.
Yeah.
You are way too committed, way too early in your shot. You're punching the trigger. It's target panic. And what you're doing is you're developing bad habits from the beginning. And actually, maybe I can put that off and go back to the release. Choosing the wrong release. I shouldn't say the wrong release, but a release that will not allow you to build good habits. And I'm talking about the caliper releases that have a Velcro wrist strap, that have a bar that's that long.
You got the
I've got one. I've got a safety release right here. It's got a bar that's that long, and you have to reach to go out and get that trigger. Well, that's not building any good habits.
Right.
That takes so much mental toughness to be able to fight the feeling of punching that trigger. I don't care how long you've been shooting. If you use one of these things,
do you have a hinge up here?
My hinge is in my truck.
I could run downstairs and grab one. But that's for the video.
Yeah. But choosing the proper release. If you're going to choose a caliper release, there's nothing wrong with it. But at least choose one to where you can bring that thing in. And my release sits right here in my hand.
Yep.
And so when I wrap it around and I pull back, it's about right there. And then I'm executing my shot with about that part of my fingers. And there goes like that, and I squeeze and pull back my elbow. Nowhere in that process am I going wham and I'm punching it harder than freaking Mike Tyson. There's nowhere in my shot process where you're punching a trigger. And when I say don't do that, you typically won't hear me say that, but don't do that. That's not even on the track of foundational principles of archery.
Right. Well,
that's in left freaking field.
A lot of guys, if you watch a lot of hunting videos, like a lot of guys whack the shit out of a trigger, and it still works. It still works just fine because they have, I think, for me, it came, when I first started shooting, punched the shit out of the trigger all the time.
Everybody does.
I did hardcore, but what changed was I started getting into archery. I think that you could consider archery and bow hunting two different things.
Mm-hmm.
And I was still into bow hunting, of course, but I got more into archery for bow hunting. Mm. And so what that did was then you start searching down, well, I need to create this perfect shot process. Mm-hmm. And that goes in with your release, right? I had a caliper that had like probably an 1/8 inch of trigger travel. There's no way to really accurately, for me at least, to squeeze through that without wanting to whack the crap out of it.
Right.
So I think when I started learning about how you're actually supposed to do it, if I had never learned how you're supposed to do it, I'd probably be a far better shot right now.
You would never know if someone never told you or showed you.
Right. I'd still probably, and that was when I was better. Like I had no thoughts of, oh gosh, I'm gonna whack it, right? No, it just went where it was supposed to go.
Right.
And now I'm like, I'm a basket case when it comes to, shooting different things. I hunted with a hinge this year because I did not trust myself enough to make a good shot process with anything besides a hinge. And you can still punch a hinge.
You can still punch it. You can manipulate it. Granted, I do honestly think it is harder in wind than a caliper or a trigger style release. But you can manipulate that thing just like you can a trigger and get it to go off when you want it to go off.
I understand the harder in the wind thing, but if you're executing a proper shot with any release, you're gonna miss the same exact way with a trigger, with a thumb trigger, with a back tension, with a hinge. Any release you're shooting, if you're executing the shot, pulling through, you're going to miss every single time in the same exact way, whatever release you're shooting.
Well, guys say, a lot of guys say that the hinges are no good in the wind. And to add on to your point is I follow up that with a question like, why? Because then they're telling me that I'm punching it in the wind. And granted, I punch the trigger a lot in the wind, and I still fight the urge to do that. And I did it in Africa, and it didn't end well. And long story short, I work on target panic more than guys who probably have target panic because it's not a battle you win. It's a war you have to keep fighting if you're going to shoot a bow. Target panic. And that's that's pretty much 90% of what we're going to talk about people doing wrong is target panic.
Well, all things put together that can lead to that, right?
Uh-huh.
Can we get into, so I don't know how deep we want to get into this, but you're saying using the wrong release. Can we tie in using the wrong release method with that?
Sure.
Okay, so anybody that's watching or listening, I would assume, I would probably say 50+% of you didn't start out shooting a hinge unless you started out in target archery.
Right.
You probably got your regular straightforward caliper release. And what I mean by that is it's got a trigger on one side and two jaws that separate, and the string releases straight out of the center of it.
Correct.
So there are really good trigger style releases that have a sear, that have a hook style and a sear, and they break at whatever poundage you set them at.
Mine's short and sweet.
Right. Yeah. I just ordered an RX1 not too long ago, Carter. So I'm hoping I can get that heavy enough.
Yeah.
Because then I can practice with a hand and shoot that. Anyways, so assuming you guys all started with that, I would assume that 99.9% of anybody listening whack the crap out of the trigger the first time.
I would absolutely. I didn't learn how to shoot a bow until even just a few years, probably 4 years ago.
I
shot bows for years, and then I was working with the guy at our shop, John, and he was I think he was a Triple Crown champion. He was a national champion.
He's a beast.
and amazing archer. And I was shooting in the range with him, and I was trying to show off, impress him and stuff. And then he's like, you shoot good. And I told him, and I was actually going, I was going there to learn, and I sought out his help because I'm like, man, I shoot good, but I want to shoot better.
Right.
And he's like, you shoot good, but he's like, your off days are gonna look like this, right? You have your off days, and if you have your off days in archery, you have a day where that pin just won't settle. Your groups are like this at like whatever X 60, 70 yards. He's like, my days, I have off days too. My off days are like this.
Yeah.
He's like, that's the difference between a guy like you and a guy like me. And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, a guy that's properly executing a shot and a guy that's not. And then I'm like, oh. And it kind of just made me, it tossed a gear in my brain. I'm like, I really need to learn how to shoot a bow. Like, yeah, you can do it really accurately wrong or maybe not proper, but you are going to gain those extra couple puzzle pieces to put the whole puzzle together, and then it's going to be like, why wasn't I doing this earlier?
Well, it's true. As you progress, you go, I remember when I was shooting a volleyball at 15 yards, and I was so stoked to put 6 arrows in a volleyball at 15 yards.
Yeah.
Now, if I'm not putting an arrow in the X at 15 yards, I'm like, it's a bad shot process, right? Like,
yeah.
So it's just a process we go through. And same thing for me. Somebody told me one day, and they ruined my life when they told me that. They're like, hey, you're shooting wrong. I'm like, what do you mean I'm shooting wrong? That thing's money. But then you start thinking about it, and you have those off days where you just can't hit your ass.
The guys that I shoot with at 3D shoots and stuff, if I'm punching the trigger or if I start not executing a shot, they let me know.
Yeah.
And I feel like two people are too proud. I'm like, and if I'm doing that, I want to know, because a lot of times it's subconscious. You don't even know you're doing these things.
Right. So let's talk about the proper shot process. We'll go through just your big 3 kinds of triggers that people are going to use. So we'll talk about an index release, a thumb release, and a hinge, right? Yeah. So you shoot a index, so I'll let you take that over.
Yeah, I shoot an index release, or basically just a regular trigger release.
Yeah, a trigger.
And
activated with your index.
A wrist rocket. I don't use my index finger. I use my whole hand.
Right.
There's a reason I do that. It's because it's way too easy to punch the trigger with one finger. If you activate your whole hand or use your whole hand, you're relying on much more than just a finger. And you can slowly, more securely, at least for me, and this is the way I've heard it from another championship archer, that if you just slowly make a fist while keeping tension on your elbow, and then bringing that elbow back, and then trying to act like you're pinching this pencil with your shoulder blades, and like you're going to try and hold it there together, you're kind of going like this. And so when you see these pro archers execute a shot, it goes like that.
Yeah, they break apart.
That's why it's called getting a good separation on the shot, or getting a good break.
Sure. And
you can do that with an index. It is probably 10 times harder to do that with an index than it is a hand release, which I shoot the HBC Honey Badger, whatever they call it, by True Ball, HBC hinge release, and I could kick my own butt shooting against myself if I shot with the hinge versus the trigger.
Oh yeah, hands down.
Not even down. I feel 50% more accurate with my hinge.
Carter Honey 2 is the hinge that I shoot, and same thing, man.
It's light and day.
Lights out with a hinge.
Yep.
And like I said, this year that shot I took on that bull is 52 yards, and I just drew and anchored like there was nothing in the world that could have stopped me from making a perfect shot.
Yeah.
Like, so much confidence with a hinge. And you're probably the same way. When you're looking at X's with a hinge, like...
I'm surprised when they don't go there.
Yeah, you're like, what happened? And that's when you can really break down your flaws in your form. So with a hinge, you would draw an anchor basically with your forefinger and your middle finger straddling your jawbone. And then for me, I just kind of relax my index finger. I keep that squeeze in my back. And if you're going to execute any release properly, it's going to be squeezing your back. But 99% of us don't do that when we're shooting at something. Adrenaline takes over. So you get anchored there, and as you're squeezing through with your back, and I just relax my index finger, squeeze, boom, and it breaks, right? And you get that motion like that.
Yeah.
And you notice...
It feels good.
You notice it does. It feels great.
Yeah.
But you notice if you go from shooting something that you're consciously activating the trigger on, then you go to release. I shoot left-handed. I always shoot right, and you probably shoot left with your hand. Because that follow-through is going... For me, at least, I consistently shoot right compared to my thumb release because...
I shoot a little lower.
Lower?
Yeah, I add 2 yards onto on my pile and I shoot.
Maybe that's just where you're anchoring.
A lot of it is the different style of hooks. So a caliper release, if you're using a caliper release, it goes like that. If your hook's like this, it's putting a little bit. It's the way that the string reacts against the hook or the release. It's just a different style. So different releases will cause you to shoot differently, even though nothing's really changed.
Right. And then we take a thumb release. I know you're not a fan.
You can still punch. Yeah, I don't know.
Oh, you can punch it easy.
You can punch it.
So with a thumb release, though, you're going to
guys
draw.
use that as a placebo.
Oh yeah, that's what it was for me. Until I went to just
a hinge.
A hinge. That's what's fixed me so far.
Yeah.
And you could take the same principles you learned shooting a hinge to an index or a thumb release. But I think it closely relates more to a thumb release. But in the long run, I think you're better off with an index, going from a hinge to an index. So with a thumb release, you're going to draw. And I set the thumb trigger way deep in the last joint on my thumb. And then just kind of same thing, relax my index finger and pull, and you can get that same surprise release with that as you can with anything else.
Oh, absolutely. If you execute a shot properly, all the executions when the shot goes off should feel the same. It should have the same effect.
Right.
You should get that separation. Now with a lot of these bows and the let-offs that you're getting, maybe the separation won't be so magnified.
Right.
I'm shooting 80% mods versus the 85 with the turbo. So, I'm getting quite a bit. I've even had some guys, man, you move a lot when you shoot. Aren't you worried about the animal? No, I'm not. I've never had that problem because when I shoot, there's always a little bit of movement. If the animal's going to bust on you, me going like that's not going to be it. I've never had that happen.
Right.
Where it's me shooting and moving has costed me an animal.
I think my last bow was 75%.
Was it?
This one's 85.
But yeah.
Yeah. So, along with the movement, let's bump on to the next one.
Yeah, so another one that I want to go over, and I got the
my pick
AccuBow.
or your pick? Is it your pick? We'll go with your pick.
We'll
go
go
with the
mine.
next one.
Okay, mine will be the grip. And so, are you going to choose that?
No.
Okay, good. So, I have the AccuBow here, and it's so cool doing a live video because on podcast, no one would ever see this.
Right.
But so when you see me shooting, and I'll get over here, when you see me shooting my bow, a lot of times you'll have me nock an arrow, right? And then you'll see me put my release on the D-loop, and then you'll see me putting pressure against my hand like that, and that's getting it in the same spot because it feels the same. The pressure's the same.
Yeah, I do the same.
There's a line that goes down right here on your palm, basically straight in line with your index finger going straight down in the middle of your palm. That bow should be on the thumb side of that line, right? And then it should be your knuckles should be about at a 45. Now, if they're more like that, or they're more like that, or whatever, choose your lane. But typically, what I do is everything's relaxed. Using my front two fingers are on the front of the riser, and then I'm not doing this at full draw. I'm not finding my grip at full draw. What you're doing is you're introducing torque. You're introducing way too many variables that aren't duplicatable, that aren't able to basically be repeated. It's just not consistent.
Right.
So get that grip now before you pull back. And then keep that grip the whole time. And then what a lot of guys will do is they'll go shoot and then they'll grab their bow.
Yep.
Right? So what I do is, and that's a lot of guys that have target panic will do that because they're anticipating the shot. It's oh crap, my bow went off, or they will get that flinch. Sometimes when they expect their bow to go off and it doesn't, they'll get that flinch. That's because their brain is anticipating the shot. And they've trained their brain to grab the bow, do everything all at once. And so that's when they shoot, their elbow just sticks right there, nothing moves,
Super rigid.
It's super rigid, super uncomfortable, and just super twitchy.
Right.
So relax, you find your grip before the shot, put your release on there. This is my shot process. If that doesn't work for you, then find some other way.
Sounds like we have a similar shot process.
Yeah, but I can tell everybody for sure what you should want to look for is not your grip when you're at full draw.
Oh yeah.
That's not what you should be worried about.
All I try and think about when I'm at full draw is aiming.
Yeah, is executing a shot. That's really all I focus on.
I almost don't even think about executing. When you shoot enough arrows with the same kind of thing in a practice situation, like I basically can draw and all I just think about is burning that pin through the target. Like,
yeah.
That's what I do. I look at the target, and my subconscious kind of takes over where the pin's at, right?
Yeah.
You're probably the same way.
I look at the target too.
If you stare at the pin, it goes bonkers, and then you want to punch it.
The target should be typically is stationary, right? Your pin is not, and so it's going to make you feel less accurate when you're focused on something that's moving. Focus on that, and then just let the pin float.
Right.
And then
I try and pick out, like on a critter a lot of the times, like a deer especially.
Yeah.
That crease.
The crease, a shadow, mud
a
plot, a hair, a spot, whatever it may be.
I pick one, aim small, miss small. You know.
Yeah, exactly.
A lot of guys, I think, shoot at the center of them.
They shoot when a lot of guys, what they do, and I see this all the time, is that they'll draw, and then you'll see them moving their bow up, moving their bow down. Typically not from side to side. They're either doing this, coming down on it, or they're doing this, and then when it goes right by the boom, they go like that.
Yeah.
So they're drive-by shooting, and that's again target panic. But you know, or if they do come to the side, let me say the animal's moving. As soon as it gets on that vitals, they punch the trigger. Well, your bow's still moving, so now you probably just moved that far and you gut shot something, or you shoulder hit it. So you have to let your pin sit for, I would say, a couple seconds before you pull that trigger, or else you're just asking for a very inaccurate shot somewhere that you're not going to like where it hits.
Right.
And there's plenty of guys that I know that have not let their pin settle. They just, as soon as it gets in that kill zone area, they're punching it. And
I'm guilty of doing that before.
You know, that's one thing that when I started off hunting, you know, my first couple of years, would I do that? Yeah, I'd do that. And you know, as you get more shots, you know, you learn that it's just not worth it.
Well, and you start to learn too, like, that deer's still gonna be there. You know, or that elk's still gonna be there.
Yeah.
You draw and you anchor and you think it's this big race. When you think about it, and afterwards, you're like, man, I really rushed that.
I used to do that when I started off bow hunting. It was like, get the shot off, get the shot off,
Yeah.
get the shot off.
And
But now it's like, if I don't feel good on the shot, and I've done this on probably half a dozen animals, I'll draw back and say it's 70 yards. It's getting out there.
Yeah.
And I do shoot that far, and I shoot animals that far successfully, very successfully. And say I draw back, and I may get bashed for that, but I draw back and say, you know, I can shoot playing cards at 70, the animal's feeding, everything's perfect, wind's good, and I'm drawn back, and my pin just won't settle. I'm going to let down, give myself a deep breath, give myself 5 to 10 seconds, raise my bow up, try it again. Okay, there it is. Pump, and then I'll smoke that animal. I mean, I've done that literally. I've done that probably 3 times at longer distances. And I've even done that at shorter distances. I've done that at 30, 40 yards. If my pin won't settle, then why are you taking the shot?
Right.
If you aren't for sure, and this goes guns, bows, whatever it may be, it's a long shot and it's a low percentage shot if you're hoping to hit the animal where you're supposed to be. If you're saying, oh, you're so freaking dead, I've already got you on the barbecue. You're dead.
It's perfect.
That's a good shot to take.
Yeah.
But if you're hoping to hit the intended spot on that deer or hit the deer in general, you're not being an accurate shot and you're not taking shots you should be.
Right.
So that's why, you know, effective ranges are great, but maybe on that animal at that moment, your effective range is not out that far. So I don't know. That's a whole rabbit hole we can get into, but you know, man, I can get real deep into
fired
this.
up
Yeah.
here.
So I don't know how we got there.
My next one, we're just kind of going through a list, and for the live viewers that are new here, we're doing a podcast, and we decided to go live with it. We're live on YouTube and Instagram, and we're just kind of going through our
experience of most common mistakes.
Most common
things that I see.
Bow hunting mistakes.
Yeah.
So if you guys have a question, or you want something to be covered,
if you guys have a mistake we haven't covered yet, go ahead and throw it up.
So my next one, pulling too much weight.
Yeah, I've done
What's
that.
the difference in 3 pounds can be a huge difference.
Huge.
So if you don't shoot a lot, 70 pounds for a lot of guys is a lot of weight. When you're shopping bows on, like, say, used bows, right? You're looking, you see a lot of 55 pound, 65 pound bows, and I'm always like, dang, these guys. I'm like, where are the 80 pound limbs at? I want a bow with 80 pound limbs.
Yeah.
And we both exercise a lot and shoot our bows a lot. That's a good point. Deer whisperer, we're gonna get to that. We both exercise a lot. So what is it, 3 foot per second per pound pulled, I think on average.
Something like that.
I think so. So the
3
difference,
to 5, depending on
the
bow.
difference in saying you're shooting a 450 grain arrow at 290, and now you're shooting now at 70 pounds. But that 70 pounds, when you're excited and you're amped up, and it's 20 degrees, and you got a big buck in front of you, and you can't pull that, or you pull it, and that let off's just a little too less, and then now you draw that weight, and then you jump back down, well, that deer's gone. So now you take that down to 67 pounds. It's not going to make one lick of difference in what that arrow does, but it's going to make you more accurate. Not the holding weight, because really with the high let off bows of today's day, the holding weight is it's so small. With an 85% let off, you're holding 15% of 70 pounds. So you're right. Is that kind of how it goes?
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah,
So,
it is.
so you're hardly holding any weight. So when you're at full draw, the stress just comes from holding your shoulders up. I was filming you earlier with a camera, and my shoulders were sore after 10 minutes. So
Yeah.
I think pulling too much weight is a big mistake. Everybody's chasing speed. We talked about that earlier.
We are.
And speed is important, yes, but if you went 3 pounds down into a 100 grain tip from a 125 grain tip, you're not going to really change your pin gaps.
Right.
But what you are going to change is your ability to, especially guys that hunt back east and stuff, you're drawing back, and it just making that draw cycle easier in a high stress situation, I think is crazy important.
No, I totally agree. And somebody's talking about turbos there. I shoot a turbo first year I shot one. And I've always shied away from them because they're way too aggressive. And I see a lot of guys who...
speed bows in general.
Speed bows in general are...
Hoyt calls them a turbo. There's speed bows across every line.
There are.
Yeah, see that full throttle. That thing was awful to shoot.
They are. The new Evolve cams are amazing, though.
I heard that.
I will say that, for beginners, I would try and stay away from the turbos. I don't try and choose bows for people. I let the bows choose them. But, you get a lot of these guys that want to get the coolest... they get into bow hunting. They want to get the coolest, newest bow. Maybe the one that Cameron... Yeah, maybe one that Cameron Haynes is using, or... whatever, and these guys, they're shooting turbos, and they're getting pulled off the back wall like constantly. Like, I love this bow. It's like, somebody should just really be honest with you and say, maybe we should start you with something with a little bit more let off, or a little bit less aggressive cam, or a longer brace height. You really need to shoot more bows. Don't just buy the first one you get, and you have to bring your brain with you when you're shopping bows. Don't just buy it because it's cool. Don't buy it because I shoot it. Right. Don't buy a Hyperforce because you shoot one. Don't buy, you need to bring your brain with you when you're choosing these bows. And I'm glad that somebody brought the turbos up, because I've seen it multiple times in the bow shop, guys making purchases on bows that they have really no business buying. They don't have the experience. The brace height's not right for them. The draw length isn't even hardly right for them. And they're getting pulled. I still get pulled off the back wall of my turbo every once in a while.
Occasionally. If I get lazy. I got pulled off the back wall today. I was shooting.
I saw that.
Jumped off, had to come back.
Yeah,
so
and it's just something
that's a new bow to me. I haven't shot it a lot,
Yeah.
so it's kind of different. But what do we got here? Shooting a target and shooting an animal is very different.
It is
yes,
very true.
It is insanely different.
Yeah.
You can punch 10 rings all day long on your 12 rings all day long on a 3D target in your yard.
Right, and I'm guessing that's directed towards that me shooting animals over 70 is like I said, if every animal I pulled back on at 70, I'd probably have a lot more animals on my wall. I don't take every shot, and it is so different that it's, like I said, it's not worth it. And if I don't know if that animal's going to move or not, if it's just sitting there and you can read the animal's body language, the wind's good, everything's calm, you can get, and I don't know how many times the animal's calm, but looking at me, and it literally watches me kill.
Yeah.
That's happened 4 times where they literally watch the arrow hit them. And if you get out at that extended range, and I've talked about this before, and a lot of guys over east won't understand because they don't shoot that far. But if you shoot past, that 60, 70 yard mark, they're too comfortable, honestly.
I think it's different.
You're not threatening to them anymore.
I think it could be different with
Maybe
whitetail.
It could be.
They're jumpy little critters.
Blacktails, blacktail, mule deer.
Blacktail literally think they're invisible if they're standing still.
Yeah, I mean, I've killed 3 over 70 with my bow, and I'm not bragging. I'm just saying, all of them literally didn't move until that arrow went through them. Yeah. Watch the arrow hit them. And when I went to Africa, I made a shot on an animal, and I was doing my homework, and I was talking to the guides, and like, hey, these things will watch you they don't care. They don't jump the
It
string.
jumped on you.
Yeah, and that animal jumped on me, and I took a shot that the guide's like, yeah, do it, and it did not work out. The animal jumped the string, and I was going off of what they
Right.
suggested, but so I, the animal was looking at us. We were busted, and that's probably one. Obviously that's one I regret taking, but that's literally the only time I've ever lost an animal at 70 yards, and do I regret it? In the same situation, the guy told me to take the shot. I was comfortable with it, and I just wish I had more experience shooting animals in Africa, but I don't.
Right. I guess it's a little different ballgame too. They want you to square up that.
Yeah, and how many times have you seen somebody, say they jumped my string at 20, 30 yards? I mean, if they're gonna jump, they're gonna jump.
Yeah.
So
yeah, definitely.
That's my 2 cents from a guy that has shot at extended ranges. Do I like shooting close? Yeah, I killed that elk at 18 yards.
I haven't shot anything. I practice. Well, we shot together at 110 or 120 yards.
I think it was like 107,
something like that.
8.
We shoot long shots and for fun.
Yeah, I was actually playing a game with you where guys were like, "Hey, can you shoot my arrows for me so I can get the tickets in the game or whatever?"
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
we were
guys
shooting
were
that money ring,
paying for me to shoot for them.
so we shoot these long distances, and for you, it's come into play shooting long shots. For me, I always practice these long shots. Same thing with a long range rifle for me. Off topic, but I've never shot anything past 52 yards. That's the furthest shot I've ever taken on a critter.
Really?
52 yards with a bow. And the same thing, I built this crazy long range rifle, and the furthest shot I've taken is 760, which is pretty long.
That's a far shot.
But my bear this year was 420, and the one I shot in the spring was 350 or something.
Those are pretty average shots.
Yeah, and I got this crazy long range gun. Anyways, but so what's your next one, Garrett?
So another one that I want to talk about is basically, so you're at full draw, and I went over this in the video that we're going to upload as well. It's going to be more visual than what we're doing here. But you're going to see me draw my bow, and I'm going to say something about having a chicken wing, and that's when so I'll line up with this camera here. Everything's lined up, but the elbow comes off over here. That's called being a chicken wing, or they're way overextended over here.
That falls into that draw length.
Draw length. But a lot of times, especially with guys that have too short a draw length, they will, and I'll go over to this camera, they'll be like this, and you see my elbow over here when it should be straight back. That's called being a chicken wing, and that's going to pull that string over, and it'll cause you to hit left, right, depending on which way your elbow is directed. Now, I've seen that, and the guy, I'm not trying to sound cocky like a douche or anything, but, these are things that I've seen and helped guys with at the range after they ask me for help. It's not like I'm pointing that out and saying, hey, dummy, but, so this guy was having problems tuning his bow. And kept shooting left, didn't matter how far he moved his sight. And I'm like, okay. And he's like, I can't figure it out, man. And then I watched him shoot. I get right behind him, watch him shoot. And then immediately, his arm's over here. And so I'm like, stop, let down. Okay, let me, you're going to draw your bow. I'm going to move your elbow back. And then you're going to shoot. And then he freaking bullseyed at like 20 yards, 30 yards, 40. It started going perfect for him. He had to re-sight in a little bit. But he was so much better off after just moving his elbow over that much.
For me, it was dropping the elbow in.
Yeah, or raising your shoulder up, and I do that. I don't shoot as much as I used to, but you see a lot of guys that shoot, and then the more they shoot, the higher that elbow comes up, and that just changes the.
Fatigue.
It's what it is. It's your body's compensating because your lats are weak, and your body's just compensating, and so your shoulders just starting to rise high, and you're starting to lean back, and then you're starting just to use all sorts of different muscles. It just goes downhill from there. But yeah, so stop chicken winging, bring that elbow and set it right here, bring it straight back, and then let it go.
Yeah, I think a lot of these little things that we're talking about can all cause form issues. And so like somebody can't just tell you like, oh he shoots bad because his form's bad. Well, there's so many things that can cause bad form, right? Wrong. Even your release being, I thought about this the other day. So back to a release like this one here, which is like a long release. If you're a guy that likes to have a release tight in his hand, this is kind of how I keep mine, right? Just the length of my palm at my first joint there on my fingers. So when I draw back and I get anchored and I set that finger in, my anchor point is good. Now, and I use one with a nylon strap.
Yeah, me too.
Okay, so you use one like this. For me, it actually really negatively affects my anchor point because I'm here. That's the next thing I wanted to talk about was anchor points, consistent anchor points.
Mm-hmm.
So another thing, inconsistency can breed form issues, right? Because now you have this super long shank, and now you can't anchor where you wanted to here because this is in your way. So now you've got your knuckle way up here, and then trying to anchor there, you're kind of cocking your head over, and then that's causing that string pressure with your nose or your face, and that'll cause the pull the same way.
Yeah, and you're talking about that. That can go into something else. And there's a couple questions on here we need to answer real quick.
Okay, let's answer those.
Both eyes open, one eye closed. And so
I shoot both eyes open.
I shoot both eyes open until about 5 seconds before that release goes off, and I focus with one eye. But the whole time, and there's multiple reasons I do that. It's just I can see everything. I can see everything. I can see off over here. Maybe there's an animal over here. Maybe there's something that I'm missing if I'm keeping that one eye closed. So when I draw back, up until the point where that shot's about to go, I close my eye at the last second and I focus hard on that bullseye. So I use both eyes and then until about the last 5 to 10 seconds of the shot, and then I close my eye. So, and then what was another one? So does changing the poundage on your bow change your tune? It does. It will change the spine. Basically, it'll change potentially the spine on your arrow, the effects it will have. So say if you're over pounded or you're underspined and you're overbowed, if you drop your bow down, some guys actually can tune their arrows with their poundage. For the guys that are more accurate than others, it's called poundage tuning or whatever you want to call it, spine tuning. And basically what they're doing is that they're correctly spined, but they're finding where that spine really likes to be shot at. So we're talking within 3 to 4 pounds difference. Right. And they'll see their groups, they're shooting good, but then they're just looking for that extra little bit of tighten group. So depending on how big of a change, yes, it can affect your tune. Yeah. Most of the times, if you're only changing it by a pound or two, no.
But that little pound or two can make a huge difference in your ability to pull comfortably.
It can, and with poundage.
Going from shooting that, let's say a 4-inch group at 40 yards, and going up a pound, maybe when you're shooting good, you shoot a 3-inch group. To me, not worth it, because if you can't pull that bow and shoot it good when it matters, right? You have one draw, one arrow, one perfect release to kill the animal that you're shooting. My thing is, for every tag, I generate one perfect opportunity at an animal, right? So if you can't be perfect in that one moment, right, that 2 pounds affecting your spine and taking you from group shooting from a 4-inch group to a 3-inch group, to me, not worth it. Right. If you go up a pound and it shrinks your group by an inch at 40 yards and an inch and a half at 60 yards, to me, still not worth it. And that's just my opinion. If it's something that you can't shoot comfortably, by going up a pound, it makes it a little better, but you can only shoot 3 or 4 shots like that. Right. Well, now take the adrenaline rush of that big buck you have on your trail camera finally walks out. Now you get that adrenaline rush, and pulling that extra pound, that could make a difference. Yeah. So for me, I think whatever you shoot comfortably, you're going to shoot best.
And that's all part of figuring it out. You're not going to know these things unless you actually get out there and shoot your bow often, and shoot it often. And I mean, back when I was shooting a lot, and I go back to 2000 whatever.
10,000 arrows?
I shot 20,000 arrows before deer season, between January 24th and deer season, late August. Yeah. And my shoulder is still paying the price for that, and that's when the Halon 6 was new. Yeah. Granted that was
How many strings do you go through?
I went through 2.
2 sets?
2 sets of strings. They went through the original ones, and then I bought aftermarket ones, and then I replaced them again right before season.
And then your Halon got jacked.
And then my Halon got stolen. Yeah.
Sad day. Beautiful house in a shitty neighborhood.
Yeah, I know. But so poundage also that'll cause draw issues. So my shoulder, guys hate my draw. I don't like my draw either.
You do.
I draw straight to the chest. Guys are like I know, don't kill me. But just the way my shoulder works now, I when I use my hinge, I can get that elbow up, but I draw straight down to the chest. Some guys like that. I know professional guys that they shoot proper, and then when they bow hunt, they jerk straight to the chest. And those are guys that are professionals.
See, for me, it's I don't know. I think since I started getting a lot stronger, exercising a lot, it's really easy for me. My bow's 72 pounds, I think, 73 pounds, something maxed out. And it's just kind of like a perfect, easy draw. And I got bad shoulders. Yeah. But for some reason, that's just, if I start drawing that way, it pisses me off. So I just have to focus and just, and I probably shoot I would say 10,000 arrows a year, maybe.
Yeah, that's pretty
I
good.
don't know, what does that average out to per day? 30?
I have no idea. You're asking me to do math.
Yeah, 3 shots a day would be over 1,000. So yeah, I'd say if you shoot 30 arrows a day, you shoot 10,000 arrows a year. Is that right?
I have no idea. Somebody should do the math on that. That's listening.
Yeah, somebody that's listening, tell me.
That's a lot of shooting. Yeah. Well, I don't shoot that much anymore. I'm probably only about 8,000 this year. But back when I was
weak. You're weak.
Well, I know I did the YouTube and the podcast.
No, I know.
And
me too.
Because I'm like, I'm going to shoot more if I do all that stuff. No, actually, I shoot less.
Fire season destroyed me. I didn't shoot my bow for like 8 weeks,
really?
6 weeks, and now it's like, geez, what is this thing set at 90 pounds?
Yeah.
You have to. The consistency is big.
Yeah, and I do agree with you. Draw weight's huge. You'll start getting these guys that sky draw, and if you go back and to the beginning of my YouTube channel, you'll see me when I got that. I was chasing speed, right? I was shooting a 28 inch. I should have been shooting a 26. Yeah, shooting hang on 6. I was a ½ inch too long, and I was about 5 pounds too heavy. And I'm sky drawing in those videos, but I'm hammering targets at 120 yards, 150 yards. But I'm sky drawn, and man, that's just all part of learning and growing. And when I shortened that up, my draw was great. But chasing speed is not going to end up in the long run. It's just not worth it.
What's 5 foot per second?
Yeah, what's 5 extra pounds? Versus you being accurate versus you not being accurate. And really anymore, bows are way faster than they used to be.
Oh yeah.
Granted, I still shoot 70 pounds, but.
Yeah, I shoot 70 pounds. I got 80-pound limbs for the elite.
I like shooting between 280 and 290 for hunting.
Yeah.
The trajectory is great. I like the trajectory. I'm used to it. I don't have to really think about holding over if I don't have time to adjust my sight. Somebody said something about using a single pin slider.
Oh, 6,000 at 30 yards a day. Thank you for doing the math. I appreciate you.
Yeah. And so, it's really all about just practicing how you play. But so you had poundage.
I had poundage. That was my last one.
So another thing that I see that it doesn't drive me nuts, but it just makes makes me cringe is facial pressure.
Yeah.
Facial.
Oh, facial pressure.
Facial pressure. So what am I talking about there? So when you pull back your bow, right, and I might have to, and your strings just digging into your cheek.
Oh, here I'm left-handed.
Hard. Yeah.
I can do it.
You can do it. So just bury that freaking string into your cheek, or there's guys that do that.
Right, for this,
and what that's doing is that's causing you tipped over your phone. What that's doing is, again, you're adding more variables into your shot. You're adding more inconsistencies, more things that you're going to have to be duplicatable with, more things that you're going to have to be consistent with. And again, can you shoot really accurate like that? Yeah, you can shoot extremely accurate doing that if you're consistent with it. But again, that's going to cause you accuracy in the long run, because eventually you're not going to put the same amount of pressure in there.
Right.
So that's over 10,000 a year.
No, it's correct. I myself, it's over 10,000 a year.
So facial pressure, and then also putting too much pressure with your nose near the peep will push your peep down, and then make you have to realign your housing and make you shoot high or low depending on what you're doing.
Happens to me.
Yeah.
Happens to me a lot.
Too much pressure on your string with your nose?
My face and my nose. So like I'll draw. Issue. Yeah, especially I think that can fall back into too long a draw length. If you're all these things, we're in a big whirlwind of one bad habit leading to the next bad habit. But if you can listen to this podcast and honestly evaluate yourself and say you don't do any of these things, you probably shoot freaking lights out. But I know I
think you're lying to yourself.
I do a lot. I do almost all of these things.
Like I said, it's a war that has to be fought every day. I practice more on target panic than probably most people that have target panic practice, because I want to prevent it. Yeah. And that's why I got the hinge.
I've got it.
Yeah. I've got it too. I mean, I think honestly anybody that's shot a trigger release has had target panic or deals with target panic, isn't willing to admit it, or doesn't even know they have it. Yeah. And just a feeling of punching that trigger is just way too high with a trigger release. You have to start from scratch and really, really build yourself up. Or things that I like to see, people videoing themselves. Guys that want me to help them, send me a slow-mo video, send me different angles. Typically, the best angle is right up here above you. So if you're left-handed, it would be over here.
Yeah.
Send me that angle down on you so I can see everything. I mean, if you want me to help you, you have to send me these things. I can't just see a picture And yeah, how do I know that you haven't anchored into your bow yet? How do I know that you haven't settled into your shot yet? How do I know that you're not gripping your bow, your chicken wing? All these things.
We have to be willing to evaluate yourself
You
too,
do.
and take things with a grain of salt. A lot of things that we're talking about may not affect you, but they affect me, or they affect Garrett. You know, so
yeah.
I'm gonna put an end to my live video here because my phone is about to die. Apparently, this thing sucks up a lot of juice.
Yeah, sorry guys.
It just killed like 60% of my battery. So
did it really?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to end this live video. But thank you guys for following along and your questions and your incredible math skills. So
yeah,
until the next one,
we'll keep the YouTube video rolling. So check us out on there. But so for the guys in wrap up, so we've gone over draw length, we've gone over facial pressure, we've gone over another thing I want to talk about is stance. I'm not going to tell you whether a more open stance is good, whether you're squared up, if you guys are the target, whether you're squared up like this, whether you're slightly open or what. You've helped me a ton with my process informing, Garrett. Oh, you're welcome, man. And that's a guy right there that likes to learn and is really able to be critiqued and not hate the person that's doing it. So you've been awesome to work with, man. And thanks for being part of the process and I am talking about you when I was talking about guys sending me videos, so thanks for doing that. But so your stance, you should I'm not going to say be this way or that way, but what I am saying is that you should be here. I'll stand up for it. You should be straight up and down.
Oh,
there we go. You should be straight up and down, right? You shouldn't be leaning back like this, leaning forward like that. You shouldn't be collapsing on the shot. You should be standing up nice and straight. I go a little bit less than shoulder, maybe right out shoulder width, and there's a straight line going from here down straight all the way down to the ground. So my head's not over here, it's not over here.
your spine alignment.
It's not, yeah, your spine alignment is a straight line. You're standing nice and tall like you're receiving the, the presidential award from the president or something.
This award is going to be huge.
And it's just having good. I talk about it. Shoot confident.
Yeah.
Have a confident stance, like you're
swagger.
like you are the biggest freaking badass guy out there on the planet. Chin up, shoot proper, and then execute the shot. And then you'll see me. A lot of times if you have a long draw length, back to draw length. Guys will start going like this. They'll start using different muscles to compensate for having to. It just doesn't work. Your draw length has so much to do, and I'm glad you brought that up. Your draw length has so much to do with the shot process, and it really affects it. Your draw length will spilleth over into the rest of your shot process.
That draw length shot spilleth over.
Shall spilleth over, and it will cripple you in the long run.
Yeah.
So sometimes I may transfer a little bit of weight onto my back foot for an uphill shot. So I'll transfer a little bit of weight, and that maybe bring me a little bit back. But I will say for up and downhill shots, and guys, for guys that don't know up and downhill shots, you don't want to be going like this. You don't want to be going like that.
You want to lean.
You actually do want to bend at the waist.
Yep. And
go like this. And granted, I do help myself out like that because I'll be more accurate going like this than I will if I have to go like this. It's
the draw length spilling over to everything. That's another huge one. If your draw length is a quarter inch too long, you're always going to be, to me, and you said it earlier, you're always going to be better off short.
Yeah.
And so if your draw length is just a quarter inch too long and you have to make a steep downhill shot,
that would be hard.
You cannot pull through it.
That would be really hard.
To me, at least. You can't. And you're always going to be... I know a guy that... Derek. His draw length, I think, is 28. And he sets his hunting bows up at 27.5. Just because... And he's comfortable at 28. But he sets up at 27.5 because he says, more accurate, shorter.
Yeah.
So, that's a guy right there.
It's easier to pull.
That's going to say, well, I'm not worried about the speed I get from half an inch of draw length, which is probably 6 to 9 foot per second. I don't care. I don't care about the speed.
Yeah.
I shoot better like this. Because it really doesn't freaking matter how fast you shoot your arrow if you hit something in the ass with it. It doesn't matter how fast
You're
it's
only
going.
going to miss quicker.
That's what I'm saying. It doesn't matter how fast it's going if you can't freaking shoot it.
Right. So I went over that. Is there anything else that you want to add on the shooting a bow that may cripple people up before we wrap this thing up?
Well, I think it doesn't go into actual mistakes in any form, but it is equipment related. Your setup as a whole So the accessories you put on the bow, having them tuned right. So just having a tuned bow, but I think arrow selection's big. We talked about that sweet spot of speed. For me, if I'm out of that realm, it kind of throws me off, especially over here in Oregon on the coast, shooting through brush. If you're shooting 260, it's going to be rough. But I mean, a lot of people do it. But for me, because now I shoot pretty quick, 285. Mm-hmm. So if I went back to shooting 255, 260, which I shot 268 last year, mm-hmm. and for the previous 5 years I shot 268. Now I shoot 285. Mm-hmm. So if I went back to that, I can see how that would be crippling, because if you can't, if you range something at 38 yards and it walks off 3 yards, well, that's not a big deal with a bow that's shooting 285.
Right.
You can hold in the same exact spot and you're going to hit. With a bow that's shooting 260, right. That may not be the truth. So
right.
I just think as a whole, getting, a lot of guys rag on bow shops, but that's where you cut your teeth at, is a bow shop. So getting in there and pestering people with questions, messaging guys like Garrett that know a lot more about shooting bows than you do or I do, reaching out to guys, watching videos. John Dudley, I talk about him all the time.
Yeah.
He is the gigantic Yoda of lime greenness. Yeah. And he's the guy.
He is.
If you've got a question, he's super responsive from what I hear.
On Instagram, he's really responsive.
If you comment, hey, John, I'm doing this, he might make a freaking YouTube video just because you asked him a good question.
Yep, I've done that too. Yep.
And the guy, there's so many available platforms for knowledge, right? You can just watch these ASA shoots or something where you've got all these different dudes doing all these different things and realize that all it foils back to is trusting your setup and having consistency, because you look at like Tim Gillingham does the craziest shit.
He does all sorts of stuff.
And he's a beast. And then like Levi, he talks about it. He's like, oh yeah, these guys are going to hate me, but I don't even pull through my hinge. I just roll my hand over.
Yeah.
And for years, everybody tells you, no, you have to pull through.
Right.
And he just says, I don't do that. I just rotate my hand. And
to expand on that, and he says that's been a new revelation since the let-offs have been what they are now. He's like, a lot of the new bows, the guys don't have to pull through shots. And so if you're not getting that separation, don't think that you're automatically doing it wrong. But that is a great point. I'm glad you brought that up, because, I was using my hand to activate the hinge. I was doing undoing my index finger, just relaxing it, and then it would pivot on my middle finger. And then I'd slowly kind of go like this with my ring finger. So I'd pull in and then let go with my index.
You're still activating the trigger with your hand.
You are, but what that would do for me is that would change my anchor on my string. It would, when I'd go, it would pull the string farther away from my face.
Right.
And so, my elbow works for me on that one, but with these newer high let-off bows, and the reason I'm going over this, because somebody on one of these phones was saying something about what about the new let-off bows. Yeah. What that does is it lets people get lazy and get away with it.
Yeah.
So, these new fast high let-off bows with 90-95% let-off, what do you want to call them? They work great, and for hunting they are phenomenal. Right? Yeah. You can hold back forever. However, if you are wanting to be a more accurate archer, they're not going to keep you honest. When I get pulled off my back wall, that's because I'm getting lazy and the bow is exposing it. You're not going to get that with a 90% let-off bow. So, do you want to be able to hold back longer on that buck, or do you want to be more accurate in general? I mean, you can have both, but it's going to critique you more, and you're going to get more out of your bow with less let off. You're going to get more speed, all that stuff. But again, some guys like that high let off. I like about 85%.
I'm good at 80, 85.
And this turbo at 80s, I probably should have went with the 85s, but I wanted that extra 3 feet per second, 5 feet per second. And
speed chaser.
I get pulled off the back wall every once in a while, and so I'll probably be going to a little bit less aggressive bow next year. But
I mean, it's a good reminder, though. I mean, that little like, hey jackass, don't be lazy, right? Yeah. Settle into that.
You're not pulling through, and that's why I like it. Is because I love being exposed when I'm doing something wrong, right? And so that bow,
I just like being exposed.
Well, that bow does it for me. So when I'm being lazy, I want to know on that prime I shot last year, it wasn't aggressive enough. It would creep off the back wall, and you would never even feel it.
Yeah.
And so it's user preference. Let-offs, they allow for more user error and less actual, archery. But there's some huge benefits to it, and so you need to pick your poison there. But
well, I think we covered most of. I mean, I'm not going to say you or I are professional archers,
no.
bow hunters, anything, but just sharing the knowledge of mistakes that we've made throughout the years could perhaps set somebody off on the right foot.
Right. Like I said, I would say I didn't shoot wrong, but I didn't shoot proper.
Yeah.
For 7 or 8 years.
I didn't start shooting proper probably until a year and a half or two ago.
Yeah.
And it's changed the game.
It's changed it.
It's amazing
how makes it that much more fun.
Yeah, I remember when I was like setting my big 18-inch block target up at 60 yards and curious if I was gonna hit it. And I was like stoked because I put 4 out of 6 arrows in the block and the other 2 were in the dirt.
Yeah.
And now it's like, shit, if I'm not in the in the vicinity of exactly what I'm aiming at, something's wrong.
Yeah.
And so I think as you better I think a big thing too, as you better your archery game, and I'm calling archery and bow hunting 2 different things. Mm-hmm. As you better your archery game, you become a better bow hunter. But to become a good bow hunter, I think that, you think about it and you might say it took me 20,000 shots to become a good archer.
Right.
Well, you're never going to get 20,000 shots on animals. So you have to burn that process in, but it's still going to take time. And for everybody still does it, at least I do. Mm-hmm. I still draw on an animal and get super excited and still make shitty shots. But my crappy shots are 1,000 times better now than they were 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Now me making a shitty shot is a lot better than old me making a bad shot. Now it's that miss is maybe a couple inches versus a foot. Exactly. Yeah. It's a difference between, I didn't double lung it, I hit it in the heart on accident.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So I think just don't get down on yourself making bad shots on critters, missing, right?
Right.
Because everybody talks about that. It's going to happen. You're going to miss. I've missed more things than I've successfully shot.
Right.
And the more opportunities you give yourself, the better you're going to get at executing properly when you're put in that high pressure situation.
For sure, and to expand off of that, guys, and we'll wrap this thing up here. I got real excited on that mule deer this year. I drew back on him, and my pin wouldn't settle. And I'm thinking, God damn it, I waited too long for this. This is the deer I wanted. And so at full draw, I'm like, I may not get a draw again on him. So what I did is I took 2 deep breaths, and I just didn't even look through my housing. I just kind of went like this, just calm down, you idiot, and then look back through my peep. There it was, punk, and gone. And just having enough self-control, you're only going to get that through more shots, through more shot processes, through shooting at more animals. Too many guys, and I know this because I've seen it and I've done it myself for years. Too many guys go into a shot knowing they're going to shoot. Yeah. Prior to drawing on that.
Can't let down.
They can't let down. You see it all the time in target archery, but you see it a lot in bow hunting.
We hear Snyder talk about it a lot too.
Really?
Aaron Snyder.
Oh.
He says, guys draw and they think they have to shoot.
Yeah.
Well, you don't have to shoot, idiot. You can just draw and then decide it's not going to work and let down. And guess what? You're going to find another animal.
Yeah. I'm more impressed with a guy that has enough mental toughness to let down than a guy that gets a shot off that he shouldn't have.
Right. Would you rather let down and say, I let down and I didn't fill that tag today, but I'm going back out tomorrow? Yeah. Or do you want to not sleep all freaking night because you smelled your arrow and it smells like guts?
Yeah. Yeah, well put.
To wrap it up, I think my closing thoughts have already been ran through. I think just practice makes perfect. Practice makes perfect.
Yeah. Well, if you guys want to follow Royce, so we may be getting some guys that haven't seen Royce. He has the Bowhike Podcast. Yep. Good friend of mine. Go listen to the Bowhike Podcast. It's more.
Well, I guess this is the Bowhike Podcast.
This will be a co-episode. So the Bowhike Podcast is a little bit more loose and
less PC.
Less PC. It's fun to listen to. Good guests. You get a good sense of humor on that podcast. And what's your Instagram handle?
RBC_hunts.
RBC_hunts. Go follow him on there. And you know what? Tell him that Garrett sent him so he knows how many people we followed. He sent him over.
You're still not getting a free hat.
I know. And for he's on YouTube as well. Doesn't really do much on there yet. Yeah. But if you want to get ahead of the curve on that, it's Royce Chambers, his name. Yep. He'll pull right up and then it has the Bowhike emblem right there on the podcast.
All that's on there pretty much worth watching as my fall bear video.
Yeah, and it was a well done video. It looks like something I would have done.
It was with a rifle.
Same exact style that I like.
You don't sound cocky at all. Oh yeah, it looks like something I would.
I meant like the style of edit. Yeah. So.
All right, guys. Well, I think we could wrap her up, huh?
Yeah. Thanks for tuning in, guys. If you guys like this live video, maybe we'll start doing that more instead of me uploading the podcast on YouTube. But you can follow me for the YouTube crowd that may not have me on Instagram. It's On Point with Garrett Weaver. Follow me on there. You can get a lot of these cool things that you hear on the podcast. You can see them on the Instagram because I try and correlate them.
Yeah.
Like deer, elk, arrows, footers, all these things that we talk about on the podcast, I post pictures of them on the Instagram. Yeah. So it really does help correlate there. But as always, guys, thanks for watching. Subscribe if you want to see more. We'll see you on the next one.
Thank you for listening to the On Point Podcast. And break. Thank you for listening to the Bowhike Podcast.
We'll see you guys on the next one. Bye. Cool.
My ears hurt now. All right, sweet. Well, we both got